Good morning, everybody. I'm Meredith Harris with Marlborough Economic Development, and welcome to episode 10 of Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. If this is your first time joining us, thank you. We're really excited to have you. And if you're a repeat returning customer, we're really excited to have you back. We are excited this morning because for our 10th episode, we brought on a really special guest. We have Mayor Arthur Vigeant with us today, and we're just excited to talk to him. And he's actually also celebrating 10 years of being Marlborough's mayor. So we're excited to talk to him about that this morning, some of the projects that have taken place. And with that, I'm going to introduce our co-host, Jill Warren.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you again. Episode 10.
Episode 10. Last week, we had Kelly Arvidson from Mass Development on, which was awesome. Great. Kelly was talking about kind of the state perspective, talking about some of the trips that we go on together, how we work together, and really the importance of building relationships.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
She was a lot of fun.
She was fun.
If you haven't seen it, definitely
check it out.
Check it out on YouTube, Facebook. Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us for the first time, as Meredith said, we are so happy to have you. Make sure you write in the comments, if live on Facebook and YouTube. Just let us know who you are, where you're watching from, any questions you might have about today's topic or economic development.
In general.
Or Marlborough.
Right.
Go Marlborough. And if you're watching this on the replay, hi, we check our comments, so make sure you let us know, again, a little bit about you. And this is also going to be showed on WMCT TV, Marlborough's public access channel. You'll see here below, we've got our email address, our phone number, and also a reminder that the first week of July, it's important to celebrate with our families.
Absolutely.
So we want to encourage you to do the same. So episode 11 will be
July 21st.
July 21st.
Yeah, or take the 4th of July week off.
Yeah.
But we'll play replays. There'll be plenty of replays available.
Maybe we'll make a little montage
of
all the highlights. So,
with that, I think we want to introduce our special guest.
We do.
Yes, we're very excited. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing?
Wonderful. So for the 10th episode, we didn't bring any ice cream today, but we did want to celebrate. So we have cake.
We have cake.
We got cake from Sugar Heaven, which is a bakery that opened during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome. So on the corner of Lincoln and Mechanic, we got cake from Sugar Heaven. This is their specialties. He said their best seller, a carrot cake with chocolate icing. So we wanted to treat the mayor to a little cake this morning.
No, it's really good. I've already had one piece. This is my second piece. And no, it's great to have them in the city. And they have a bakery down here and it's right around the corner. So get up there at the corner of Mechanic and Lincoln Street.
Open during a pandemic.
No, it was unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It just kind of popped up, and we've been trying to help them out any way we can, but they're doing just fine up there.
They are. They're doing great. So we're excited to have you today. We're not going to tease you as much as we tease President Ossing.
Good. That's okay.
But we did want to start off with, he told us a little bit about when MEDC, and again, we don't want to be going down the memory trail too much about MEDC, but you were there in the beginning. You were actually one of the champions of MEDC, brought it to the council, really, tried to show people why economic development was important. Can you bring us back to that time about, why were you behind this idea of MEDC and behind the idea of bringing economic development to the community?
Well, the organization itself, had been moving along for a few years before we actually changed the funding mechanism for it. And to be honest with you, like Councilor Ossing, I had to be brought on board too and educated as to why it was so important. And it's just unbelievably the change that it's made to the city of Marlborough. So, but it was a different organization back then. Back when we first started, it was a membership organization, and we'd be going to the big companies for big checks with a multi-year commitment. So it's morphed a little bit, and then the thought of using the rooms tax money as the funding mechanism for economic development made all the difference in the world. I mean, you're not, as a director, going out there soliciting donations all the time like a lot of these organizations have to do to survive. We have a great funding mechanism, and it allows you to do what we hired you to do. To go out and attract and retain the companies that are here. And, as we say all the time, that's what feeds the small businesses, the restaurants, the package stores, the gas stations, the convenience stores, the barber shops, everybody in town. So that's what feeds them, is all the people coming working in these businesses. So
I think it was Arthur Vigeant was here a couple weeks ago, and he said he distinctly remembers you sitting in the back of the council office making phone calls to some of the companies in town, and he said you looked up and said, "Oh, there's something to something to this idea of making sure your companies in your community know who you are able to have a lifeline that they can call if there's an issue." Because we talk all the time on this podcast about the importance of having business in your community. What that means for your residents.
Well, it keeps our residential tax rate down.
Right.
President Ossing says all the time, a consistent, predictable tax increase. Keep it small. We have one of the lowest tax rates in the area, and we provide a lot of services for that. We're able to do that because of the business revenue that we have coming in from all these great companies around with Quest and Boston Scientific and GE and Synovion and TJX, and you can go right down the line, the old staples of Ken's and the
all
ones that have been here forever. So they all contribute, and they all pay a lot of real estate taxes, which gives us the opportunity to keep our tax rate down and provide services for our residents.
I think you're explaining the pie, which we
Bergeron's pie.
The pie.
Bergeron's pie.
We struggle with trying to explain the pie because in theory I get it, but trying to put that into words is hard to explain. But just that concept of there's more money coming in, and then the service pie, the services we're able to provide, that increases as well.
And it just, the pie has to expand because the government's going to need a little more money to pay the increases and the benefits for all our employees and provide the services. The cost increase.
Right.
The revenue has to come in from somewhere. So you either take it in from your residents, or you take it in from your business community, or hopefully you get more from the state. That's very limited right now, so you have to take it in from somewhere. This way, we're bringing in the additional revenue with our new growth from some of these companies, and it's worked to this point, so let's keep it going.
Well, and I think the important piece to remember too is that when the pie is getting bigger, if there's more people paying into it, everybody's slice that they're paying gets smaller. So that's really the reason that we're trying to bring companies in. And
no one's paying the size of that pie yet.
Wait, you got to show it.
It's pretty big.
They gave me half of it.
Right? But it's delicious, so it's okay. All right.
But it's my second one.
That's your second piece. That's right. So last week we had Kelly Arvidson on, and we talked about business outreach trips. You do a lot of business outreach, and so you work closely with the MEDC to try to get out into companies in Marlborough. I think our target is, I think we were doing twice a month at one point, and I think maybe we've scaled it back a little bit to be more quarterly. But tell us a little bit about the importance of that outreach and kind of what is the feedback that you hear from the business in the community, and why do you think that's important to make sure we're talking to them?
Yeah, it really started when I was on the city council, and Mayor Stevens was here, and we were having our first summit with Myrick O'Connell and Arthur Vigeant. They wanted to have like a summit of our business community, and we were reaching out to the CEOs of these companies to ask them to attend our conference. And it was interesting. So I have my list that I had to do, and Arthur would come down and make sure I sat there and made the phone calls to do the introductions. And the mayor had her list that she was doing. And
you were the council president at the time,
I was
right?
the council president at the time, and it was just amazing how we weren't, it wasn't 100%. But every once in a while, you get through to the CEO of one of the large companies. It's like, why the hell are they talking to me? But because originally, when we started making the calls, they think we're calling to solicit for something.
Right.
And that's the great thing about this organization. I've asked you a few times, because I still believe there was at least one time we had sponsors for something, but I don't believe we have. No. Since this organization has started, we don't go soliciting companies for donations or anything else for the organization. It's simply here to help them get through the bureaucratic red tape that sometimes exists in local, state, and federal government.
Right.
And so when we go in to visit these companies and sit down, it's really, what can we do to help you worry about what you do on a daily basis?
Right.
Not worry about your sewer hookup or your tax rate or something else. Who's our neighbor's going to be, and we need this license or regulation from You talk to state people and even federal people on a regular basis. Worry about what you do and not worry about the outside stuff. Let us worry about that. So it's something unique to almost every community in the state, where we have this opportunity. And I think it's proven itself. The city council has been very, very supportive of the organization. Without them, we don't exist.
Thank you.
No, they've been great. They really have. But it's important to have them on board and keep that education with the council going so we can help the businesses. But, the last year, it's really trickled down with COVID to the small businesses and the residents, trying to help them get through this last year.
Right.
And it's been extremely important to get the needed supplies or needed permits or needed licenses, whatever it was, and even funding through different grant programs to allow Wellies to expand out to Main Street, or allow Shoe to get out there and help Kennedy's get their patio going, and whatever it takes to keep them through the winter. It's been such an awful year, and now we're getting back out there and
getting going.
It's been great. It really has been good.
Well, and I think the one thing that always sticks with me when we leave those meetings, when you're talking to folks, you say all the time, you do what you do, let us do what we do. And if we can try to help with some of those things so that we can almost get out of your way, so that you guys can do your thing. And at the end of the day, when you're looking for new space or you're looking to grow, at least there's a face, they know who to contact, and they can grow here in Marlborough.
Yeah.
Do we have a comment?
We do. All right, Let me pull up our comments. First of all, we forgot to tell Spencer how much we love and appreciate him.
#1 fan.
He was the first one to comment on today's live stream. You've met Spencer down at WMCT.
Yeah.
Awesome kid. He jumped on a live stream with us yesterday.
Yes.
Won a T-shirt and a gift card.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
And some of
Welcome,
his
Spencer.
Yeah. His feedback has been great. He said that he's been learning a lot about the city, a lot about how things operate, a lot about the opportunities for small businesses here in Marlborough. So he's been a great addition. Michelle P. says, hello, MEDC and Mayor Vigeant.
Hello, Rochelle?
Rachel.
Hi,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Did I say
Sorry, I
Michelle?
couldn't read that.
I might have said it.
That's okay.
And then we've got another few comments, and then we're gonna keep the conversation going. All right, we've got Alicio A. Now, Alicio is an awesome live streamer on Facebook, on YouTube. Alicio, thanks for joining us today. He says, everyone looks and sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to take credit for that, but that's Jill. Sorry. Yeah. She has a makeup room here. She has everything. A dressing room.
We look really good.
Don't deny that you weren't in there today. All right, I'm just kidding. All right, so Rachel's got a question. I believe this is for you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
What made you get involved in local politics, and has the purpose changed for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, it was back in the early 90s. Mayor Hogan was here. We were good friends, still good friends. And he was out asking me if I would run for city council. I had been on a couple, little
Boards.
committees, downtown committees, that type of thing. I was on the city retirement board at the time, but he asked me if I would run for city council, and it was like, I'm not a political guy. Why don't you, if you can get me appointed, I'll do it, but I don't want to run for anything. And so he said, that's not the way it works. But he convinced me to do it, and actually shortly after that is when he decided to leave the city and go work in Boston at the State House.
Development, right?
Well, first he was at the State House, then he went up to Mass Development, and he's doing a great job down at Makepeace down in the Plymouth area now. So right after tax season, I got through and took a week off, and then started knocking on doors the beginning of May.
Wow.
I remember taking a picture with my wife and newborn son at the time, walking out, getting signatures from my driveway, going down Pleasant Street. So,
boy, has the world changed since then, huh?
Yeah, and it was one of those things. In fact, the first meeting, it's kind of funny. We had inauguration, got sworn in, had a bite to eat at City Hall. We had our inaugural meeting, and I went back to my office. Well, a few days later, I get a call from Karen Boule, the secretary over there, and she says, are you coming over here? And I said, yeah, for what? Because I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew nothing. She said, you got a mailbox here, it's full, and you got a meeting Monday night. And it's like,
Whoops.
oh, okay. So,
This
so
is
she
awesome.
kind of took me under her wing and taught me the ins and outs of City Hall and City Council.
Karen is a
and,
staple
yeah, no,
in
she,
Marlborough City Hall.
you know, councilors that don't use her knowledge are missing out on so much,
Yeah.
and they all should, you know, talk to her before they try to do things, because she always says, you know, I'll tell you what's happened in the past when that's been tried.
Yeah, she knows where all the bodies are hidden.
You can
and-
you can do it if you want. Here's what the results are going to. She can tell you the results before you go in
before
and
you
do
go
it.
in.
But no, so it kind of grew, and again, I wasn't kind of hooked on it.
Yeah.
And probably after a couple terms, it was like, this is
kinda
kind of
cool.
good. And even running for mayor, I had no interest, none whatsoever, until it finally clicked that some of my headaches that I was causing when I was on the city council was because I wanted to make those decisions, not
Right, yeah.
the decision. I didn't want to be a legislator anymore. I wanted to be an executive, and really didn't hit me that way until I said, you know, that's why I'm asking those questions.
Well, all right, so that's a great segue. That was 10 years ago. You've been mayor at the city of Marlborough
Yep.
for 10 years. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
incredible. We have a couple of projects that we just think are great projects that have happened for the city under your executive branch, and we wanted to kind of throw those up on the screen, ask you a little bit about them, you know, why those projects, tell us a little bit about each one, and almost brag a little bit about the city and the things that you've done, because it's been an incredible run.
Yeah, no, it really started with the beach project, Memorial Beach.
It's one of them.
Actually, we went down there. I was, again, president of the council, and Nancy was mayor at the time, and we went down to a dedication for Lou Galoni, who had been just a staple in the city through the recreation program, started the parade, just done so much for the city. And they wanted to dedicate part of the beach to him. So they did a big mural on the side of the wall down there, and walking down to that dedication was so embarrassing. It's like nothing had changed on that beach since I was a kid taking swimming lessons there.
Yeah.
You know, there was orange water running down the walkway. It was just so embarrassing being there. So I sat down with Mayor Stevens at the time and said, we really have to do something with the
Yeah.
beach. So she said, well, we'll go for the grant, and if we get the grant, we'll do it. If we don't, we can't do it this year. And I said,
Yeah.
that's fair. And we didn't get the grant that year.
Ugh.
So the next year, when I was mayor, I went right back for the same grant for the same project, and we were successful.
That's great.
Did an entire upgrade down there, did the parking lot, the basketball courts, the playground.
It's beautiful.
It's-
We
We were
have
just down there
handicap
yesterday.
accessible down to the water. I mean, it's just phenomenal down there. And to be honest with you, we've had more positive comments about the beach project than anything else we've done in the entire time I've been involved in city government. So,
Well, it opened this week.
yeah.
And it was
opened this-
Monday. We went down yesterday, did a little live stream. It was gorgeous down there. Absolutely
Perfect.
gorgeous. The kids, the lifeguards were down there. They were all excited to be out. There were families. There was kids splashing. I mean, what an incredible asset for the community.
Yeah, no, it's just a phenomenal asset. It really is, and you know, like last year, we're going to keep it to city residents initially. We have the issue with when it's a real bad weekend. Last year, we kind of originally opened it up to everyone, and
Yeah.
we had parking all over the neighborhoods. It
Right.
was just packed, and
Yeah.
I think that means it's a popular spot, right?
yeah, no, it was. Well, last year a lot of the beaches were closed.
Right.
Right.
So they found Marlborough was open. Well, they showed up from everywhere, Framingham and Worcester, and
Yeah.
Hudson was closed also.
Right.
Westboro was closed, so they'd come over, and
Right.
so it was just packed. And there were people doing family picnics in people's front yards. I mean, it was just. It was bad.
was a
So we
little
cut it
crazy.
off to Marlborough residents only. We're going to start it off the same way this year.
And just bring your proof of residency, right? I
Just
think I
bring
saw that on your page
something,
yesterday.
free parking, free access. And,
Yeah, there you go.
It's great this year. I know Hudson's back open. They're doing the same thing
Great.
for residents only. They just did a renovation over there. So it's just a great asset for the city.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
The next one I want to jump to, which was early days, was the senior center, right?
Yeah.
And Jill, you've talked about that before on the podcast because you grew up in that neighborhood, right?
Right. Yeah, I grew up right on Orchard Street. Ward Park was like my backyard. It was the best place to grow up. And I remember hearing about the project as a 20-something ignorant,
Were you one of the ones yelling at me that I was
Probably.
going to put the building in the middle of the
Jill's
field?
really shy, so I don't think she would do that, but maybe.
No.
Well, I didn't
We could
understand.
not convince people that we weren't putting the building in the middle of the field. I mean, it ended up in a lawsuit and everything else. It
Wow.
Wow.
Was, yeah, it was very frustrating because we thought we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, there were complaints we had taken away one of the baseball fields, the dugout field, the little dugout.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we had taken that away, but we were going to make the field bigger. And
Yeah.
we're making the field bigger because it's actually in a bowl.
Right.
We were going to raise the level. We had to raise it because of the drainage issues, because there was always water issues around the track. So we're raising it, which would make larger field space.
Right.
But we could not convince people of
Yeah.
what we were doing. So we kind of just, you know, so we
Forged on.
We moved on. We had a lot of meetings about it.
Yeah.
But it was very frustrating because there was some we just couldn't convince.
Yeah.
And now you get down there, it's just a phenomenal space between the senior center and the field and the track and the, you know, skateboard park.
beautiful.
And you get down there right now, it's 10:25, and the pickleball courts are full.
Jumping,
I mean, every day they're full down there. They take the tennis court, they divide it in half, and
Yeah.
they do.
And they've got great events over there. Relay for
it's-
Life's been there. They've had
The
bands.
Zip Trip was over there at one point.
Oh, yeah?
No, we
Yeah,
had
that was
the-
really cool.
Yep, Fox
So-
25 zip to.
So, Jill, do you like it now?
I love it.
You love it.
You know, I don't know what it was. I think some misinformation
Yeah.
got spread around online, and you know, there's certain things that sound juicier to like, oh wait, that's not right, that's not fair. What are they doing to my
Yeah.
park?
Yeah.
And honestly, like it is
Beautiful.
beautiful. I wish it
And
was
it-
like that when I was growing up.
And the senior center itself, I mean, Trish Pope and their team down
Gorgeous.
there, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, such a great asset. They've got the greenhouse out back, and there's just a lot of different things that are going on. It's such a great thing for our
Yeah.
community.
The lead group from Thrive did graduation ceremonies
Yeah.
there. My younger
That's awesome.
sisters
Yeah.
in that program and graduated
Yeah.
from there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one,
Yeah.
Marlborough Hills, which,
Digital.
yeah, you yelled at me earlier. So we were joking
Stop
this morning.
changing names of things, will
Right,
you?
so for anybody that's watching, we were laughing earlier because company names change, and you know, if you haven't been here as long as some folks have been here, not pointing any fingers, but you might not remember the old name. But so for
Right.
me, Marlborough Hills is the old digital building,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Yeah.
In fact, if you get people a couple years older than me, they'd say the
The
RCA,
RCA
building.
building.
You know, but no, it's morphed into many things over the years, and it was right after I became mayor that we had almost 1.5 million square feet of vacant space between that side and
TJX.
Fidelity had just left town, and it's like, now what?
Right.
Yeah.
And this guy Joe Zink called and said, I got this idea, and it's like, who are you and what do you have? And really, he built a relationship with the city and the council and myself that he was just such a trustworthy guy.
Right.
Came in with this proposal that was really phenomenal. And, you know, he's come through with everything he ever said he was going to do.
Yeah.
I've called other communities where he's doing projects to try to push the goodwill their way and just say, hey, when this guy says he's going to do something, he's going to
does
do it. And look what we have up there right now. You know, we have the hotel, and although, you know, originally he was talking about, you know, having TJX take the other building. I mean, it just turned out so good for the city and the revenue that comes in from that now.
Huge.
You know, it was a $40,000 a year tax producer, and now it's, you know, way over $1 million. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've got Cytiva up there, Quest. I mean, those folks haven't stopped through the pandemic. I mean, that place it's been busy over the last
Yep.
year. Whole Foods
Yep,
is in
Whole
the middle.
Foods, and now they have the Avalon Apartments up there, and
Right.
it's just a big mixed-use project where people can roll out of bed and go to work and have great jobs. It just really is a phenomenal complex up there.
And that was a bit of a, we like to use the word the game changer, right? I mean, because that was a turning point in Marlborough when Atlantic Management and Joe Zink, and he kind of set the standard, right? I mean, he set the bar pretty high for when a developer comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it took a lot of work for him because it was new. People weren't used to doing
And
this
no
kind of
idea
thing.
who this guy was.
Right.
Or Atlantic Management. It's like, what do they do and where are they? Well,
Right.
they're right down the street. Yeah. So what's that mean?
Right.
But
And TJX was right next door.
yeah,
That was early
actually, the original proposal was that my first conversation with Joe Zink was going to visit TJX and
That's right.
bringing them to Marlborough. I was, again, president of the council, and
Right.
we had an emergency in the city, so the mayor called me up and said, I have a meeting down in Framingham, but I can't go. None of my team can go. Can you go? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll go home and change, and I'll get down there. And
Good thing you went.
It was a original introduction to DJX, and
Yeah.
what a great company to have here.
Yeah, I mean, huge footprint, and that whole campus, and I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about the overlay. I mean, that was kind of the introduction to this whole idea of overlay zoning. You guys hadn't done much of that before, but look at the results from something
All
like
right,
that.
tell me
Incredible.
about overlay zoning
Sure.
if someone's never heard that term.
So an overlay zoning is when you come in and there's an area of the city that you want to put in a new zoning. So Apex is another great example of an overlay where it adds additional uses to the underlying zoning. And I think the important piece of that is the underlying zoning doesn't go away. So anything that was allowed through the underlying zoning stays there, and then
Okay.
just adds additional uses that are allowed. And also it limits things to a degree too. It gives the council some different controls over things.
If they want to do the expansion for the overlay, they have a lot more controls of it.
Right.
So that's
kind of a
whereas
cool thing
if
about
it's
it.
by right stuff, then they have much less control.
Right. So we've done a few of those throughout the city. We're working on one for Donald Lynch Boulevard right now, and just a different planning tool that you can use for economic development.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Apex, did you want to?
Yeah, so that
Talk
was
about
another
Apex?
one. So come a little bit more recent, Apex. I mean, that was another huge, and the story behind that one is kind of fun. I mean, wasn't that like a napkin conversation with Joe Trull at one point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I called Joe, and I know he had been doing some projects with some restaurants, and one of the things you and I hear when we go into the companies is we want more walking paths and bike paths for our employees. It's all about the employees and things for them to
Right.
do. And we go up to Boston Scientific, and Mike Mahoney, the big cheese up there, the first thing out of his mouth is, "Did you get me a white tablecloth restaurant yet?" and it's like, no, I haven't. We got all these other restaurants. Yeah, but did you.
Right.
So I've been pushing for this white tablecloth restaurant. Well, I called Joe and said, can you come and look around, see if there's a possibility of bringing Robert Walker down here and maybe attract one of those restaurants? I've been really unsuccessful with that. So we had a quick meeting, and him and Robert came back to me. I'll bet you it wasn't 2 weeks later and said, we're thinking about doing a hotel. And I said, I don't want a hotel.
No more hotels.
Yeah, but it'd be a hotel with a restaurant. It's like, what kind of restaurant? Well, one of my restaurants. It's like,
Yeah, that's
so
how
it
it
just
started.
evolved, and that was just the bottom of the hill at Apex. And it's like, well, why would you do just the bottom if you can lock the whole
The
thing
whole
up?
thing.
And so he came back, basically, like you say, with a really rough sketch, and says, so what if I do the whole thing and do something like this? And it's like, yeah, that'd probably
That
be
would work.
okay.
Yeah. And we got MassWorks money for that as well. I mean, that project,
Yeah.
talk about, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about like the revenue that comes in? I mean, people see the Apex Center, not only is it super fun, you can bring the kids, and it goes so well with the sports center and, all of the things in terms of putting Marlborough on the map. But like the revenue that comes in from that.
Yeah,
and,
we do about $1.5 million a year
It's a lot.
in revenue just from that complex. And again, it's there's always that big argument to try to leave things as they are, and the old city. And I'm a traditionalist. I really have trouble when I sit down and we're talking about cutting the trees down in a huge apple orchard when I was
Right.
a kid. But if you don't have the additional growth, the money has to come from somewhere. Go
Right.
back to that pie. So you try to control what you can, but that complex, it all was built at the same time. Robert doesn't know what the term phase is. He doesn't phase anything. He just freaking goes in and just blows it out. And I believe, I have it somewhere, I don't have it with me, but I believe it was like 18 months from the day we had our first conversation until he opened the Hyatt.
Right.
Till he
Which is
opened
incredible.
the Hyatt.
Wow.
And that included an overlay zone.
Oh, that included all the time through the council and everything else. The city just came to the plate and worked through it. The council did a great job. There was a lot of input from a lot of people.
Well, I think it's important too to note, we talked about zoning, and that was always a commercial zone.
Right.
It was always a commercial
Exactly.
zone. And so, again, back to that point of an overlay, with the overlay, the council had more control over what was going to happen there. So the development could occur one way or the other, but with the addition of the overlay, it allowed the city to be able to work with the developer really closely to get a really great project that's had a huge impact on the community.
And I was, very skeptical about the traffic down there. And if it's going to be this big and this much traffic, why is it not pouring out onto Route 20? And if you go down there any time of the day or night, it's not poured out onto Route 20.
It's actually kind of incredible.
It's all internal. Even internally, it's not backed up a lot. But it's not a restaurant that has lunch busy and dinner's busy. It's not the business community that has the 7 o'clock people are showing up for work and leaving at 5. It's a blend of everything, so people are coming and going all day long.
Right.
Where it's consistent traffic, but it's not overwhelming all at once.
Right. Which
And
is
you've
awesome.
got those two different ways to hop back on the highway.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's huge. And for me, I live in Clinton, so I'll bring my kids and I'll go back roads behind the mall, pop out over there and by the West End. So there's lots of different
all the
ways.
back routes.
Oh.
Born and raised, right?
But yeah, I would think too, like I went there on a very busy Saturday a few weekends ago for my oldest son's birthday party. And the place was booming, but it wasn't uncomfortable. There was still, it's easy to get in and out of there, but I could see how people might perceive that as being like, oh, it's going to cause a lot of traffic, but it doesn't.
No. And I think the sports center, and we can talk a little bit about the sports center too, but like the addition of the rinks and both of those things, talk about from a tourism perspective, and again, those big fish feed the small fish, but also the visitors that come into the community also feed the small fish, our barber shops and our restaurants. And that's all really great for the community. Do we have a comment?
Yeah, we have a few. We've been on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt. There's a tough balance between interacting with our online guests and our in-person guests, but we've got the mayor here, so But let me bring in a few of our comments here. A few comments about our live stream. Thank you, Steve. Just talking about the quality of it. And Steve Worthy used to live in Danvers, Mass, so he misses our Boston accents.
Do we have Boston accents?
Okay, Mr. Mayor does.
He does. The rest
do?
maybe you and
What are you talking about?
You do. You got an
What are you
accent
talking
there,
about,
pal. And then Rachel again is just saying, she's just appreciative of the work that you've done in the city and
local Boy Scouts events. That's
yeah.
great. That's great.
Mayor Hogan has great memories with him too. All right, so we've got a question here. Let me see. Sorry, there's so many. You're so popular.
Oh yeah.
Spencer, I'm going to circle back to your question at the end here because it's great. So TJ is asking a question. He says, "Hi, are there any short or long-term plans for adding commuter rail, public transportation to help with the commute time to Boston? I ask as a potential future resident and a home buyer."
TJ, thanks for joining us.
Great question. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Well, the transportation issue goes back quite a ways. I remember talking about it when I was on the chamber, and I was on the board of the chamber way back when, in probably the late 80s. And I remember Bill Bruin had done a transportation study, trying to get the chamber involved in trying to solicit the state in bringing a commuter rail here. Walter Bonin's been working on it since he was on the council years ago and trying to bring a commuter rail here. But Bill did this big study, and I'll bet you I could still find the proposal, but everyone said, no, we don't want that here. It'll be all kinds of traffic, the people getting on the train, and we don't want anything to do with that. And now, if I could have two things in the city of Marlborough, it would be a commuter rail running through the Main Street area and water running through the Main Street. You know, if I
Kinda
could
like
have
a river walk.
a river
That'd be
and
awesome.
a commuter rail connection somewhere in the city, it'd be great. But anyway, so we've been very unsuccessful with that. We've talked to the state, we've talked to transportation, we didn't make their 40-year plan.
Yeah.
So it's just where you put your efforts. So we've been putting our efforts in connect the buses, working with Meredith and trying to get it connected with Southborough or Westborough, doing shuttles from here to there. So we're going to be kicking that off again in the fall once people are back to work.
Right.
And we're excited about trying to expand that so we fill those buses going back and forth to the commuter rail in Southborough or even Westborough if it works better.
Yeah, so TJ, would love to follow up with you offline. We do have a shuttle bus, and not sure if you're familiar with that, but like the mayor just said, we're going to be relaunching that in September as folks kind of come back from the pandemic and start not working from home. But that is also an option for folks that are either working in Marlborough or live in Marlborough and need to get to work somewhere along the commuter rail.
Right.
Absolutely. And then we've got another comment from Jenny. I don't know if she's joined us before, so welcome, Jenny.
Hi,
We're
Jenny.
so glad that you're here.
This is Jenny Cataldo. She is over at some of the hotels at the Apex and at the Residence Inn across from Sports Center. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Great.
she said, thank you for creating the Apex complex. She loves her job at the 2 Apex hotels. Awesome.
Fantastic.
And TJ says, perfect, thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely follow us up.
Awesome.
Follow us.
Whatever it is.
Whatever.
Whatever it is. Okay, so you mentioned something about the 80s, right? And I don't think
I so wish I had some pictures queued
I
up
know,
of the
right?
mayor in the
I
80s.
know. So I don't think we have enough time, believe it or not. We're bumping up against time, but we did want to kind of throw a question to you, having a little bit of fun. You were born in Marlborough Hospital. You've lived here your whole life, so you've spent every decade in Marlborough for recent memory. Can you bring us back to maybe your favorite decade in Marlborough, or where was like a hot spot, whether it was the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, any, something that kind of jumps out to you?
Well, I think for almost everyone, it's the high school, college years, so it'd be the late 70s. It was just, it's the best time of your life. I worked a lot, paid for my own schooling at that time, paid for my own high school. I went to Hudson Catholic.
Yeah.
My family just, they had 6 kids, and my father worked for the family trucking company. I drove a truck for years. I loved driving a truck. That's my background, so... but we, it was obviously a different time.
Yeah.
We, being at Hudson Catholic, I spent maybe way too many nights at the bar lunch. Over here in Marlborough, we had the Case and 8, which was unbelievable. It was the only rooftop around.
Is that the one that was over by Lake Williams?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right next to the Fix
The
right
Fix,
now.
yeah.
So,
Go
but
Green Wave.
those 2 places were unbelievable.
That's
They
awesome.
were just the staples in town.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
No, and
I don't remember any of them.
No,
Jill, do you remember any of them?
the family restaurant right next door was the Oxford.
Yep.
Fantastic seafood.
Yeah.
Clams and scallops. It was great.
That's awesome.
You had the Wildwood. Kennedy's came along later.
Yeah.
That was the AOH down there. It was an Irish pub.
Yeah.
A little secret. Spent a few nights
there.
playing guitar there.
Did you?
No, yeah. We got a couple. I think our first time we ever played in public was there. But
So you're a guitar player.
When are we going to hear you play?
Not today, Jill. Maybe
No,
another episode.
but,
What about the food truck festival?
Yeah, right.
You twist his arm a little bit.
But
He's
so
pushing us away from that.
there's been a lot of good times. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
it's just been a phenomenal place, and then you go through the years with Sully's and
Yeah.
Pastimes, which
Absolutely.
again were 2 staples in the city that people always visited. You always
right.
saw the locals down there. The Wildwood,
Right.
Yeah.
they've bounced around a couple times because of fires, but
Wow.
it was one of those places you go in and you have less of those places today.
It's almost like Cheers, everybody knows your name.
Well, I think it's more because there's so many options
Right.
today.
Yeah.
Right.
Back then,
Which
there
is
were
a
3
good problem.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up until a few years ago, if you went to Hudson, there were no restaurants. You had, Prince Diners, and
Right.
and that was it. And
Right.
and Helen's around the corner.
Right.
But there were really no restaurants, and,
Right.
and here we had a few more, but not much more.
Right.
Now between the two communities, there's a ton.
A
But
ton.
whatever type of food you want, and
Yeah, you can find it.
you can find it. You can find it.
So Lindsay in the office, we had Lindsay on a couple weeks ago. Her first job was waitressing at Pastimes. So
Really? Now Larry Fody, you walk in there and he'd greet you with a big smile, and he'd
the
give
rest
you
is history.
he'd give you the history of what happened that week everywhere, because people were always telling him stories. So
President Austin chimed in and said hitching posts and souvenirs.
there you
Ooh.
go.
No.
So that was again the '80s, and late night haunts.
That's awesome. Did we have more comments?
We did. Mike Lawton has a question.
Okay.
He said, "Can you
Hi,
ask the
Mike.
mayor to talk about what it was like to be a guest at the State of the Union address?"
That was very interesting.
When was that?
Congresswoman Songus invited me
Oh, that's
down
right.
for Obama's second inauguration. The bipartisan thing, and I guess she considered me a Republican, so she invited me down. But it was really, she couldn't have been more hospitable to me going down there. I got the flight, they picked me up. She took me to dinner in the special underground restaurant for
That's
the
cool.
Congress. It was really, really cool walking through the hallways and stuff.
Yeah.
And then getting up to the galley, because all the guests have to sit up in the galley, and it was a heck of an experience.
I
And
bet
then
it
going
was.
over to her office, and I hadn't been down to Washington since high school. When I drove through right after we graduated, a friend of mine, Marty Galoni, Lou's son, and I drove down to Florida. And on the way down to Florida, we stopped in Washington and was supposed to spend a couple of days down there, and ended up spending a few hours because it was so dirty and nasty,
Yeah.
in the 90s, that it was just awful. Well, when I went down this time, and it really has been that long since I've been down, I remember leaving her office with her,
Yes.
and I would, she says, "You know where the hotel is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's down this way." And she said, "I'm going to walk home." And I said, "I'll walk you home." It was probably 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Chivalrous.
And she said, no, I like to walk home alone. They get mad when I do.
I'm sure.
But I like it. She says it's really, really safe around it. I mean, it's almost like so safe down there. Now, they just changed so much. So, I walked to the hotel. She walked to her condo there, but you could walk around the city. It was clean.
feel good.
They did such a great job down there, and not even sure who to give the credit to. I think it started with Ronald Reagan and redoing, the White House and everything, and then the mayors that were down there really took it upon themselves just to clamp down on everything.
That's
But
awesome.
it's just a phenomenal city
So
now.
much
and-
better experience than your first time.
It was unbelievable. She was fantastic. I loved the conversations we had. We knew the things we could talk about and not talk about, so we had a good relationship. Every time she came to Marlborough to visit a
good.
company or something, I would get a phone call and I'd go with her. So
That's the way it should be.
No, absolutely. And I wish her, the best of luck. She retired now, but she did a good job for us. She really did.
That's awesome. So we're running out of time.
We are.
And so we did want to show you a quick clip. I saw that you had shared on some of your social media our Hidden Gems series,
Yep,
which is
yep.
one that we're doing with the residents, trying to have people vote on local shops, quote unquote, hidden gems, right? So our most recent one was George from G&L Auto. We had a great conversation with him, but one piece that didn't make the Hidden Gems clip, we're going to embarrass you a little bit, and we're going to play it because he had wonderful things to say about you in the city of Marlborough.
Here we go.
So I grew up in Marlborough, and I've seen the city change, and I see all of the great changes, all the new places, and all the new garages being built. I see all the redevelopment working, and we have a great city. Okay, we really do have a great city, and
We do.
and people are flocking to the city now. And I think when they get finished with all the housings and all the development projects they got going on Mechanic Street,
Yeah.
it's going to make Lincoln Street, Mechanic Street beautiful. You know, and I really do think the mayor does a great job. He really does, and he's to be commended for everything he's done for this city, for everything that's gotten done.
No, George is a great guy. He's one of those that's, been around forever.
Yeah.
He runs a
26
small
years.
business,
Yeah.
and that's the stuff that it flows down to someone like George.
Right.
He runs a memorial motorcycle ride every year for his daughter that passed away, and donates that back for scholarships and things. He's just a great guy that does a great job in the city. So
That's what
thank
it's
you,
all
George.
about. Yeah, well, and we couldn't have said it better ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the city has come so far. There's so many wonderful things going on. So thank you for everything that you do.
No,
for
can't
the
do it
city of
without
Marlborough.
everyone else. We got a great team, great council, school committee, managers, our residents. Everyone's been on board. So it makes it a lot easier when you're not pulling teeth every time you want to do
That's right.
something.
I know I love Marlborough. I decided to move here a couple years ago,
Thank you.
start my family here. It's an incredible city. It's an incredible place to be. So thank you for the past 10 years. Thank you for being our guest on our 10th episode of Exploring Economic Development. And we look forward to the next episode, not till July 21st. But thank you to everybody for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.